Welcome to the WordPress Photography Podcast, the podcast for photographers who want to learn how to get the most out of WordPress to grow their photography business. You don't need to be a geek to understand WordPress. Settle back and listen as we show you how. Now, here's your host, Scott Wyden-Kivowitz.
Photography is a developing hobby. Welcome to episode 88. My name is Scott Wyden-Kivowitz, and today I am talking about your photography site's speed, and specifically, how fast is your photography website? Site speed is important for SEO these days. It has always been, but since Google has switched to a mobile-first search and rankings, it's become more important. Fast sites on desktop means fast sites on mobile, typically, which means happy viewers, which means happy Google, which means Google is happy with your site. There are so many tools for testing the speed of your website, like GTmetrix and Pingdom and YSlow and even Google's own page speed test. And how fast is your site with these tools? Are you getting a low grade? Because I'm sure you are getting a low grade. How accurate are these tools? Well, in some ways they're accurate, because they're looking at many things, but in other ways, they're not as accurate as you really want them to be. They're not real-world results. They're cached results from servers optimized for checking site speed. And they're looking at millions of sites, and they're looking at everything that's loading on the site, and they're lowering your grade if you have like Google Analytics loaded, or if you have something like a Facebook pixel loaded. If you're using Google fonts or Typekit fonts from Adobe or anything like that, they're looking at all that. And every time you are calling to external things, they're lowering your grade. Every time you've got some inline CSS, they might be lowering your grade, and so on and so forth. This is not 100% accurate. They're not human tested on real internet service providers. So here's what you should do instead. I want you to gather your own site speed data, and I want you to do this in your own browser, on your own ISP, and in whatever browser you want. So I'm going to go to the computer so you can take a look, and we're going to go through this real quick, give you an idea of what to do. Okay, so first things first, open an Incognito tab. Well, really first open a browser, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, whatever. I am right now in Chrome because I do most of my work in Chrome. I switch between Chrome and Safari often, but I'm most of the time in Chrome. I don't like Chrome. It's a slower browser. I don't like it. It also is a RAM hog. It likes to slow down the computer, but unfortunately it's the most robust browser available. So that's what I use. Now, I am on my photography website, and I opened an Incognito tab in Safari. It's called Private Mode, but either way, go to an incognito or private mode in your browser, and then you want to find the developer console. In Chrome, it's the three-dot icon, and you're going to go to more tools and then developer tools. If you do not know where it is in your browser, just Google Safari Developer Console or Firefox Developer Console, and it'll help you find it. Once you're in there, go to the Network tab, and you should see something like Disable Cache. Turn that on and leave it on, okay? Don't turn it off. What that'll do is whenever you have this open, whenever you have the network tab of the developer console open, it will actually disable the cache. So anything that is cached should not really be cached when that's checked and you refresh. Okay, now you're going to refresh once on your site, okay? And you're going to start seeing some things load. This is stuff that you would see in Pingdom and GTmetrix. It's called a waterfall. This is when things load on your site. And if you see some errors, it's okay. I see an error because I'm in Incognito, and sometimes errors come up in Incognito where they don't when you're not in Incognito for various reasons. Don't worry about that. At this moment, at least, don't worry about that. Now, what I want you to do is refresh a handful of times. And pay attention to there's three things down at the bottom of at least Chrome's developer console. It might be a different spot in your browser, but there's a finish time, a DOM content loaded, and then a load time. Okay, those are three different things. this is where the fun starts. There are these three things you need to pay attention to. DOM load, the DOM content loaded, is when the site is visible enough to make sense of it. It's part of what I like to call the 2-second test, where viewers know exactly what your site is, what your site's about, what you do within 2 seconds, right? So hopefully this loads within 2 seconds. With DOM loaded on your site, it looks okay, but it's not functional yet. When the DOM load is finished, it's not functional yet. It's basically what's visible above the fold. You can't do anything on your site while that's loading. So you can see in my first refresh, it's 1.70 seconds. That's pretty good. And I've even seen it way faster. I've seen it in milliseconds on my own site. And now load time is when the page is practically fully loaded, but not quite. Not quite all the JavaScript files are there. Maybe some CSS files aren't loaded. Maybe not all the images are loaded, depending on your site setup. Like if you have lazy loading turned on, maybe the lazy load script hasn't loaded yet. And then after that's loaded, it has to load the images. So load is when you can start interacting with your site, but the site is not fully loaded. Then there's finish time. Finish time is the complete load where nothing else has to load after. Even if you have lazy loading turned on for images, your images would be preloaded at this point. So finish time is, like right now, finish time is 2 minutes. It just went up from 1.8 to 2 minutes on this refresh. 2 minutes is a long time for a page to load. But again, that means that all the images that, if I scroll down, these were preloading in the background. These were preloading in the background. All of these were preloading in the background, and it took 2 minutes for that to happen. Okay, so basically what I want you to do is refresh a bunch of times. And you'll see that the numbers will start going up, going down. They'll stay the same a little bit. Depends on traffic on your site at that given moment in time. It depends on how your server is, if it's a shared host or a VPS, or if it's a dedicated server, whatever. All that depends, right? Now, typically, the load is a good number to go by. And I say that because when people start trying to interact with your site, it's during load, within that 2 seconds. So you want your load to be under 2 seconds. And again, on my own site, I've seen it drop to milliseconds. It all depends. Like I might have a bunch of traffic on my site right now. I might have WordPress doing an update right now. I don't know because I'm recording this. But so right now, my load is over 3.43 seconds. It's still not bad. That's still not bad. 3.43 seconds. And, at 2.4, people will already be knowing what my site is about. But let's see if we refresh one more time. 3.12. So you can see everything's going down. So maybe somebody left the site and now I have a little bit more bandwidth to load faster. Now, what I recommend you do is to create a spreadsheet. And every time you refresh the page, note down the DOM, load time, the load time, and the finish time. Then in another column of the spreadsheet, average them out. Do this a half dozen times, do it a dozen times, whatever you want. Try to do it when there's nobody else on your site. Try to do it when your WordPress instance is not doing an update. When your site is yours and only yours for that 3 minutes that you're doing this test, the 5 minutes you're doing this test. But do this, and in that other column, average out all of these times. So you'll have an average DOM, you'll have an average load, and you'll have an average finish. This should give you a really good sense for how fast or how slow your website is. And then if you really want to, compare that to GTmetrix. Compare that to Pingdom, to whatever you want, and see if that is giving you realistic results. All right? Because this is going to be real world results, whereas the others will not be. I hope that helps you as you start thinking about site speed. And if you want a plugin to hopefully speed up your site speed a little bit, check out WP Rocket Cache. I'll link to that in the show notes, at imagely.com/podcast/88. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.
You've been listening to the WordPress Photography Podcast. To listen to other episodes and to subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more, please visit imagely.com/podcast.